Welcome back to another episode of the Larae Way. I'm so excited for today's episode because we'll be talking to two stylists and a makeup artist who will tell us more about mental health in the beauty industry. So let's please welcome Jess Carae and Cameron Sterling. Welcome to the Larae Way, Jess. I'm so excited to have you because it's so important to talk about what we're about to talk about today.
Yes.
Mental health in the beauty industry.
Yes.
It's not talked about, especially because the beauty industry is one of the reasons why mental health is where it's at right now. So it's really interesting to hear a makeup artist come and talk about that and the opposite side of it, because you see both.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about your makeup journey, when you started, what made you fall in love with it, everything.
So I've liked makeup forever since I was like a little kid. It was like my favorite thing. Lipstick in particular was like my one thing that I always needed to have.
Lip color today
I
is
had
everything.
to come through. Yes. And so then I just practiced a lot in high school on my friends and stuff like that. And then I went to cosmetology school straight after high school. And after that, I just kind of jumped around from job to job, and now I have my own beauty bar on the west side of Grand Rapids, and I also have my own makeup line, Carae Cosmetics. It's like a full range of products from concealers, foundations, powders, lipsticks, eyeshadows, eyebrow pomades, mascaras, everything. So
You got the whole set.
yes,
I love it.
Yes.
You guys, she is amazing at makeup. She beat my face multiple times, so I love your products too as well. So tell us a little bit about like what started that makeup line. Like, where'd the idea come from?
So I've always wanted to have a makeup line. I think most people who are in this industry eventually like dream of coming out with their own products. For me, COVID happened and I was out of work for 3 months and I still had bills to pay, a child to take care of. So I was offering like online lessons and stuff like that, but that wasn't really getting enough traction that I needed. So I had the idea like now is the time to start it, because how else am I going to make passive income but still be involved in doing what I love? So yeah, during COVID is when it started and been going strong ever since.
That's really good.
Yeah.
COVID businesses.
Yeah,
There's
right.
so many of them.
I know.
So I know you starting makeup also affected your mental health in a positive way.
Yes.
You said that making people happy makes you happy, which is really sweet.
Yes.
But tell us a little bit about that, like where your love for makeup kind of crossed the line with mental health and how that's helped you cope with that.
So for me personally, I was in a really toxic relationship in high school. And I wasn't alone a lot, but when I was alone, I would come home from school, turn on YouTube, and I would literally watch makeup tutorials until I would go to sleep. And then just practice on myself. And it was just like my escape, my way to get out of my head and focus on something that I loved to do. And it just kind of like drowned everything else out that I was going through. So that's where it really started. And I kind of got like obsessed and then it just kind of took off from there. So for me, it was like a release, a quiet time for myself to kind of just think about things or not think about things. And it also just made me feel better about myself too, you know? So yeah, that's kind of how it started.
Yeah. And when did you kind of realize that you were struggling with your mental health? I know you said you had depression and anxiety that you struggled with.
Yeah.
When did that kind of start for you?
I would say for me it started pretty young, probably in like 5th or 6th grade, and then as I got older it just kind of got worse and worse. That toxic boyfriend really made me go to a really dark place.
It'd be the one.
Yeah, I know, man. And he was my first boyfriend, so I didn't know what I was doing. And it was just like typical middle school and high school stuff, but then on top of that, having like an abusive boyfriend definitely pushed me over the edge. So
Right.
yeah, and then makeup just really helped me keep myself together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a really big thing, like with our hobbies or the things that we love, our passions. A lot of people don't realize that that's an outlet
Yes.
and that they can use that, like
Yes.
working out, if you like going to the gym, if you like to sing, like
Yeah.
those things that you love to do, you can replace your depression and anxiety with those things.
Yes.
In my head, I feel like that really has helped me too as well.
Yeah.
So I know you're also a single mom.
Yes, I am.
And your little girl is so adorable.
Thank you.
And I know that being a single mom is not easy. I was raised
No.
by a single mom as well. And so how did your mental health, how was it affected by that?
Well, when I became a single mom, it was really hard for me to accept because obviously nobody has kids setting out to be a single parent, or most
Exactly.
people don't, at least.
Right.
So I felt like my world was just kind of like turned upside down. I loved my daughter, but realizing that I had to like do everything by myself with not only mental support, but like financial support or stability of any kind, really. It was a really, really, really challenging time for me. But my daughter, just her being her, just like helped me so much, and it made me get more focused too in like my career, because I had somebody counting on me, and I can't let her down, and I still want her to achieve everything I wanted her to achieve before I was a single parent. I just have to do a little bit more work on my end now.
Exactly.
To help her get there.
And that's any parent, and I feel like when you are a single parent, it's kind of like double.
Yeah.
Because you're the only influence, or one of the biggest influences in their lives. So
Yeah.
that's really important that you say that.
Yeah.
What steps did you take to start getting better or start feeling more secure in your mental health?
So for me, I actually, I was like doing really, really, really bad, like suicidal thoughts and stuff like that. So for me, it was more just talking with friends and opening up. I kind of have this thing where like I'll listen to anybody talk about their stuff, but like I don't want to talk about mine.
Right.
Like I'll deal with mine by myself, but I'm here for you.
Yeah.
And I realized that that's not really like a healthy way to think. But I also didn't want to burden my friends with like my problems, so I would talk to them a little bit. But what really helped me was I started going to counseling and talking to a professional, because your friends, I mean, they're smart and they know, but like
they only know so much.
Yeah, I was like, you don't know what you don't know,
Yeah.
kind of thing. So I started seeing a counselor, and in the beginning it was like really, really helpful for me, just to kind of like realize like you don't have stop focusing on like the bad and what's going wrong, and just like focus on how you can make your situation better, and like just kind of training your mind to think a little bit differently.
Yeah.
But having like the professional opinion behind that is what started to help me a lot.
Kind of like changing your perspective on things.
Yes.
Yeah. So then you started the Green Ribbon Project.
Yes, I did.
So tell us
yeah,
about
I
that.
had this idea when my daughter was a baby, because I was going through it and I felt like I had nobody to talk to. For me, it's easier to like kind of talk on social media because you're not like in person with somebody.
Yeah.
So I just was like, well, if I feel this way, there's probably so many other people who want to share their stories or want to talk about what they're going through. They just don't feel safe to do so. So I started the Green Ribbon Project as a way just to raise awareness for mental health, and that everybody goes through things. It's okay to talk about them. And then I realized that was a lot, being a single mom, having a business, and all that stuff. So I asked Cam to come on and help me because he's also very passionate about mental health. And so it just kind of has taken off from there. And we're trying to make it more involved in the community because we've also had a lot of other things going on, especially with COVID and stuff like that. So now we're really focusing on just trying to get our message out there, and we eventually want to be able to connect people to resources within the community that fit exactly what they're looking for, to get the help that they need or the person to lean on, or just like a support group kind of thing, just to normalize just normalize talking about it, because it is important and everybody goes through it, whether they admit it or not.
Right.
So, yeah.
And for somebody that doesn't know what the Green Ribbon Project is, can you kind of explain to them what you guys do?
Yes. So the Green Ribbon Project is a podcast/blog. We're on Instagram. Basically, we just post positive, uplifting things, you know, to kind of normalize what you're feeling. We make like little graphics that just kind of have like facts about mental health, or like different ways you can cope, or we also really like to hear from other people, and we have like a way where you can either just submit us a piece of writing, or and it can be anonymous or not, just saying whatever you want to say, whether you're talking about something you've been through or something you're currently going through, if you need help. Just a way to amplify voices in our community. But it doesn't have to be like, this person is so depressed and they did that, you know what I mean? Like, you can have that anonymous factor to it too, so it's just like, you know that you're not alone without having to share, like, it's actually you, if that makes sense.
And that's a really good way to allow other people to share, because I know originally it was just you and Cam on the podcast, right?
Yes.
And now you have that open for other people to share their stories as well. And that's kind of what I'm doing with this show, like giving people an outlet to share stories that are unheard. Like, we're not celebrities. So unless we go on Instagram and tell everybody our business, like, those stories just get lost.
People don't know.
And it can help somebody.
Yes.
So that's really important.
Yes.
So as we're on the topic of mental health, do you have any advice for anyone who is struggling with anything that you've been through, or just anything that you've learned throughout your journey?
I have learned that while it's important to rely on your friends, it's also important to seek help in other ways. Like, for me, it was therapy. For other people, it could be meditating or whatever the case may be. Just finding different ways to cope with it that are healthy, instead of doing unhealthy things. Like, it's easy for people to drink or smoke weed or do drugs, but focusing on healthy ways to help yourself, and realizing that mental health plays a toll in your physical health. So if your mind isn't right, your body isn't going to be right. And also, nobody knows what they're doing in life. We're all just like playing a game.
We're all lost.
And so, like, don't be too hard on yourself. There's not a timeline. You're not supposed to get married right after high school and then have babies and then, like, that doesn't exist. That's not realistic. So just don't be too hard on yourself. Allow yourself to feel how you feel without dwelling and sitting in that place.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's really good advice.
That's what I would say.
Thank you so much for joining us, and we will be back to interview Cam about the Green Ribbon Project and also mental health in the beauty industry from his perspective. So thank you guys so much for being a part of this.
Thank you.
I love everything that you had to say. You're so valuable.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Today I'm here with
Heather.
And my question for you is, how do you deal with comparison to others?
I don't compare myself to others.
That's really good.
Ellie.
Mitch.
Quinn.
I try just to remember that I'm my own person, and that I can control what I do and not what others do.
Yeah, just making sure, your individual, your persona is your own, keeping that to yourself.
Honestly, I just ride my own wave. If people like me, awesome. If they don't, they don't. I'm going to stay being me.
That's a good mindset to have.
Welcome, Cam, to the Larae Way. I'm so excited to have both you and Jess here to talk about mental health in the beauty industry. And we kind of left off with Jess talking about the Green Ribbon Project. So tell us a little bit about your role in that.
Yeah, so Jess had brought me in this time last year, so we've been a team now for a little bit over a year, and she brought me in to do some of the writing content for Green Ribbon Project. So as a writer, it was a really great outlet for me to share my personal stories via the digital articles that I create, and then also help to find other people from the community that wanted to share their story with us too. So that's a lot of what I do right now for Green Ribbon, is the content creation with Jess, and then writing those articles and editing the podcast and all that fun stuff.
Right. And what kind of writing do you typically do? How do you format it, and what do you talk about?
Yeah, so it mostly ranges from, short pieces to really long articles. I'm not great at writing just quick things. So it's storytelling mostly, and it all comes from personal experience.
Yeah.
It always has to have that personal component to it, otherwise it won't resonate with people. So it's important for me to just be as open, as I possibly can, even if it's talking about something that is difficult or was, traumatic in the past. I don't think that we can really help people fully unless it's as honest as it can be.
Yeah.
And if you can really, focus on those emotions and work through it, writing is actually a great outlet to release and reflect on some of those things.
Yeah.
So my hope is always that it's helping encourage people to see that in the future, if you keep working on what you're going through, it's going to be okay at some point.
And me and Jess were just talking about like outlets and
Yes.
doing what you love to help cope with your mental health. So you would say writing is one of yours.
Definitely, if not the biggest.
Yeah.
So
And you're also into the beauty industry.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that would be one of your outlets as well.
definitely,
And I know you didn't start with cosmetology school, you started with business school.
I sure
So
did.
how was that transition, and what made you change over from that?
Yeah, so when I started school, I was 18. I didn't really know what I wanted. It just seemed like a good degree for me to go into, which was business. And, I wasn't really passionate about it. I was kind of just pushed into it and thought it would be good for me, but my mental health really suffered as a result. I wasn't living authentically, and I wasn't using my talents for anything that was helping myself or anybody else for that matter. So I tried to just get through it as quickly as I could, and decided to go to cosmetology school a couple years later. I knew that I wanted to be in something creative and something related to beauty or fashion,
Yeah.
and discovered that, hair and makeup just was so fun to see the transformation from beginning to end.
Right.
And it started to develop, the sense of how important beauty was to mental health, and to see somebody really happy after they left.
Yeah.
And, that transformation. So that was something that I didn't really realize had as much power as it
Exactly.
did.
Yeah. And obviously you love what you do,
I do, yeah.
but there were some times where you were in the cosmetology school or industry period where you felt like you no longer wanted to pursue it because of the environment you were in.
Definitely.
So tell us a little bit about what was going on in that and how you felt.
Yeah, in school, I had a pretty nice group of friends. So we stuck together, and there was some, cattiness and drama amongst some of the other students, but we really held closer together and were able to manage through that. But I kind of had a feeling going into it that there was going to be some of that. I had been working in a salon already when I was in cosmetology school, and realizing, some of the drama or cattiness that would go on really was disheartening to me. I felt like it was counterproductive to what we were doing. So it was interesting that you could spend all this time making this client feel beautiful and making their day, but then you go in the break room and you start talking negatively about, your coworkers or the client that just left, and it just really bummed me out.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like that in every salon, but I could say for the most part that was kind of a takeaway for me. So there was a brief period of time where I stopped doing hair altogether, just because I thought that was how it was going to be at every place, and it made me sad.
Yeah.
So the thing that I loved in the industry that I thought I loved started to become
a burden.
for my mental health, and that was really sad. But then I kind of just had to fight my way through it, and no matter what was going on around me, I just stuck to what I knew was the intention.
And what you love.
Yeah,
Which
exactly.
No one should drive you away from what you love.
No, never.
That's very important. But now you're freelancing at Pretty Committee.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that organization, how it started, what you do there.
Yeah. So Pretty Committee was founded by another beautiful friend of mine, Emily Frew, who is one of the sweetest, kindest people that you'll ever meet. Her whole philosophy in starting Pretty Committee was that wasn't going to be a place where there would be drama or cattiness or any sort of, negative behavior, either between the stylist or between clients.
Yeah.
So she famously says that, she only works with sweethearts. So every single stylist that we have is just a gem and had a similar experience, I think, to mine in the industry. And we're tired of, negative environments ruining the artistry and the things that they loved about beauty. So we work with contractors, and we have about 35 stylists now. We freelance for weddings, events, film, TV, and commercial, you name it, we do it. And it's nice because people can kind of pick and choose, what they want to focus on and specialize in. And she's created this really wonderful environment where it's collaboration between all the stylists, and people are able to get the most from their experience working. And that really is infectious, onto our clients too. It's just such a positive atmosphere, which is odd, I think, sometimes when you think of, a beauty organization. But it's been nice to see that that is possible.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I know you said like one of the best parts of your job is being able to talk with your clients and listen to what they're going through while they're in your chair. What are some situations that you've had that you feel like was very valuable or just made you realize how influential you are in your role?
Yeah. So there's been so many. I think the one that stands out to me most, and this was years ago when I was in school, but I had somebody that came in and was just very, sad and just seemed like they were having an off day. And we talked a little bit. She wasn't super chatty with me, but as we were going through the appointment, doing her hair and then makeup, which she didn't ask for makeup, but I just felt like it would be a nice, finishing touch for her. And she started to open up a little bit more. And then when we got to the end of the appointment, she started crying. And I was like, no, how do you know the makeup?
Oh, the face.
Yeah. But she said, you don't know how much this means to me because I've been, just really depressed and contemplating suicide. And she's like, I'm sorry if that's too much information. But she's like, you have no idea how much this just made my day and made me feel like, everything's going to be okay just by coming in and getting a little pampering. And she loved her hair and her makeup and was able to realize that she is beautiful and, life is worth living, and it doesn't have to be, this dead end all the time.
Yeah.
So that was like a wow moment for me. It didn't hit me immediately at the time, but I started to think about how much that can change somebody's perspective.
Yeah.
And so that's really where that began, trying to bridge the gap between mental health and beauty and making those part of the same industry.
And I love that you're trying to do that because that is very important.
Yeah.
And you said the big part of that is the comparison issue. How have you overcome that? Let me use proper English.
Well, that's a great question. I'm still a work in progress on that. It's hard. We, in the beauty industry are always surrounded by beautiful people, and we're influenced heavily by social media.
Yeah.
And we're always seeing like the highlight reel of everybody's life and of their best hair day and best makeup day, best skin day, whatever. And I still have moments where I'll look at, myself and be like, oh, you'd be prettier if just this were tweaked a little bit, or if this were different. And I have to stop myself. That's really the best way I can describe it, is you just have to shut it off before you go down a rabbit hole, and realize your beauty is unique to you.
Yeah.
And so I think once you've become really comfortable in your skin, which happens every year that I get older, I start caring a little bit less about outside influences, and become really happy with myself. And once you can kind of work on that journey, it gets easier to pull away from that external noise.
So with your personal mental health journey, you've struggled with depression and anxiety and even attempted suicide in 2018. What led you to that? What were you going through? How are you coping with your mental health now after going through all of that?
Yeah, I think getting to that point where I was even in that position of attempting to take my own life was a wake-up call. When I woke up, in the hospital and just realizing the gravity of what almost happened and how huge of an impact that would have on my family and my friends and people around me, scared the hell out of me, quite frankly, and just made me realize how close I came to having no possibility of a better life.
Yeah.
So if you do ever get to that place, I encourage you to think about that, as it's not always going to be immediately better, but usually if you just go to sleep the next day, you will feel like there's something changing.
Yeah.
You have an opportunity to start over.
That's really good.
So I think to have that realization made me really live life fully now to this point. And so every day you can reset and improve and grow, and you have no idea how amazing life will get as a result.
And you also struggled with drugs and alcohol as well, and that was before the suicide attempt.
Correct, yep.
What brought you to that?
So that, as I'm sure a lot of people have experienced, as a coping mechanism that we use to cover pain. It's temporary, it doesn't last at all, and it usually just makes things worse. So when you start to fill, that emotional void with drugs or alcohol or food or shopping, whatever it is for you, it just makes it worse because you're putting more space between yourself and solving the problem by filling it with everything else, that you think is going to fix it. So it was a long road leading up to that, and realizing that none of that stuff was helping. It just was masking the problem.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when somebody seems like they're doing really well on the outside and that they're happy, I use that as a coping mechanism too, humor and just looking good, because that kind of deterred people from ever seeing, maybe there's something a little off here.
Check on your strong friends.
Yes, always check on your strong friends and your funny friends and the people that are the life of the party. They probably need it most. And I've since gotten all of that stuff taken care of and back on track, and now I can have a responsible cocktail when I'm out with friends, and it's not, you're drinking a bottle or two of wine at home at night and trying to mask your emotions.
Yeah.
So
that's really good.
Yeah, you got to work on that stuff first.
Yeah, for sure. So we want to end this episode with a quote that you shared with me. This is directly from you. So you said, "While we all go through similar issues, I find it so important to allow your pain to make you softer hearted, to give others the love you needed when you were experiencing the worst of times." I really love that quote.
I love that one too.
You should put that in a book.
Yeah, definitely. That's next on, Green Ribbon Project's agenda.
A book?
A book, yeah.
Yes.
So I want to start working on that this year too. Sort of a coffee table book, and have everybody's collective writings and, different stories in there.
Yes. So I'm so glad that you decided to share your story on my show.
Thank you so much for giving me that chance.
Of course.
It's going to be a great year for everybody, right?
Yes. And I will be on your show, the Green Ribbon Project.
Yes, absolutely. That's
podcast,
next.
so watch out for that. And thank you so much for being a guest on the Larae Way and sharing with me your story, advice about mental health and things you've gone through, because it's really important to share those things, especially from your standpoint as a stylist in the beauty industry.
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
Thanks again for watching today's episode. You can follow us on all platforms at The Larae Way.
And if you have a story to share, send us an email at casting@thelaraeway.com or tag us in your posts with the hashtag #ShareYourStory. See you next week.